Hi, this is Mrs. Nelson. We're looking at Unit 8, Lesson 12, using mean and mad to make comparisons. The objective says I can use means and mads to compare groups. So mean is that balance point, that typical, that center, or average for the data set, and MAD stands for mean absolute deviation. And the mean absolute deviation tells us where most of the data is. Where is it located around the center? Is it close together? Is it further apart? The dot plots show the amounts of time that 10 South African and 10 Australian students took to get to school. Without calculating, answer these questions. A. Which data set has the smaller mean? Explain your reasoning. Again, when we're trying to find the center of the balance point, we think about a teeter-totter, and we think about where would that fulcrum, where would that triangle need to be placed so that the data on the left is balanced with the data on the right. So I'm going to go ahead and place that fulcrum where I think it would go for both dot plots. And you can see that for the students, the mean is smaller in the United States than it is in Australia. So that means that it takes the students in the United States a little less time to get to school. Letter B, which data set has the smaller MAD? Explain your reasoning. Again, the MAD, or the mean absolute deviation, tells us that's one of the measures of spread. It tells us how close the data is together, and if there might be some outliers or something like that that might skew that data or affect the overall picture that we have of the data. So we look at where is most of the data located as it's centered around the mean. So I'm just going to draw a box around what I expect the mean absolute deviation to be for each of these data sets, where it encompasses most of the data right around that mean or that center. So you can see that in the United States, the MAD, again, is less than in Australia, meaning that the data is closer together. Letter C, what does a smaller mean tell us in this context? Well, I already addressed that a little bit before with letter A, but what that means is that it takes students less time overall in the United States, at least from this sample, to get to school than it does the students in Australia from that sample of 10. Letter D, what does a smaller MAD tell us in this context? Well, again, it tells us that the data is less spread out in the United States, and so it indicates that the data is more alike, which means that the students in the United States have more similar travel times in this population that we looked at than the students in Australia. So maybe this is a group of 10 students that live in an urban area of the United States, and maybe it's a group of 10 students that live a little further out in a less urban place of Australia, where it's more rural and the people live further away from each other and the school in general. Again, the objective says I can use means and MADs to compare groups. So I can see how the center can tell us more about the data and how the mean absolute deviation can tell us more about the data and the population that we're working with. Thanks for watching.